Antonio Brown at that first Steelers game.
Do you remember that game in 16 in the snow up in Buffalo where he ran for like 240 yards? Memories.
Already reminiscing about old Steelers.
Watching him run was like art.
I loved him. I love Bill.
Like, you can't even copy that in video games where you like wait behind the line for a second and then go. It's not possible.
Nothing will beat to me Priest Holmes, Sean Alexander, Brian Westbrook, and
Sean Alexander was pretty cool.
LT.
LaDainian Tomlinson.
That era of running backs I don't think we're going to see again. Those were so much fun.
I was thinking about that with quarterbacks. Like, I don't know, these drafts, I don't know if it's because I'm older than some of the guys. I was older than every guy that got drafted this year, which I think Tyler Shuck is the last person that was born in 1990 to be drafted in the NFL. So most likely, I'm guessing, unless there's like some 8th, 9th year out there somehow. But yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't realize he was born in 99.
So I got a gripe to you guys. I mean, I got a vent, right? So normally we've had our dog, Jenny, for going on 4 years now. And she knows I come home at night. You know, she can hear me come in the door. And it used to be she would lay on the floor in our bedroom. You know, our bed's in there. My wife's sleeping, and she would lay on the floor in there until I came home. And then she would kind of open the door up with her nose and come down and spend the next 3 hours with me as I'm doing whatever. Highway to Heaven, online Scrabble, whatever.
Living the life.
Over the last 2 weeks, she hears me come home. She comes down, and it's always been the case. When I get home, it's treat time. She knows that. Give her a couple treats. But then she would always just stay there and lay on. She has like a little bed right next to the couch. Now she comes down, gets her 2 treats, and goes back upstairs.
Oh, man.
So, you know, I always said it when I go home, it's me and the dog. Now it's just me because apparently I've done something to tick her off.
Made her mad.
Dogs, man, they got feelings.
I was going to say, what'd you do?
I don't know. I'm good to her. I mean, I scratch her belly. I tried that with Beth one time, and she about slapped me in the face.
Oh,
but,
my gosh.
Welcome to Eye on Sports, where we delve into the biggest Butler County sports topics. I'm your host, Butler Eagle Sports writer, Derek Pida. Joining me are fellow sports writer Brendan Howell and Eagle Sports editor, Jake Murda Adams. I give her treats, I walk her.
I knew you were going to say something like that.
I had a first.
No woman wants their belly scratched. Or touched or... Well,
I tickled Bailey's feet last night. She said she's gonna break my fingers.
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
I get that threat and a lot worse.
No,
from Mallory.
but it's funny
That's
because
the
like
thing.
we'll lay down to go to sleep and like she'll lay her head on my chest or like I'll cuddle her and she always
Details.
takes her fingers and shoves them in my armpits and she thinks it's hilarious. So I'm like,
You and I are going to have a fight.
so I'm like,
someone else is gonna break your fingers today.
I'm like, can you please stop because it bothers me, but I can't let her know that it bothers me too much, otherwise she'll keep doing it. And I'm like, can you just like knock it off? Like, and finally I'll get to that point where I snap and I'm like, okay, quit it, and she'll just stop. But she thinks it's hilarious when I get to that point that like I get mad that she's tickling me.
Mallory did it to me. This was years ago. Mallory did something similar to me one time where she tried to startle me like that. And I just reflexively like threw bows and I almost
That's what
hit
I told her. Yeah.
And she's like, why would you do that? I was like, that was completely out of my control. I was like, so don't do it again.
I told her if she keeps it up one of these days, she's going to get accidentally elbowed in the face and it's going to look like I'm a domestic abuser. Like,
I had a first with Zena this weekend. We had a tick. Had to take that off.
Oh, no.
That was fun.
I just squeeze them out.
Yeah. She's so immune to pain. Like when we clip her nails, if I accidentally like hit the cuticle a little bit, she like doesn't really win. The quick. Thank you.
Yeah, can you come trim my dog's nails then? Because he turns into a gremlin.
Mine doesn't because
not even joking. He
she just decides
crazy.
Have you ever tried to pick up a chicken before?
Yes.
You know how they like once they know that you've enveloped them, they kind of just give up and accept death. That's what
Their
my
legs.
dog.
Well, that's how you choke a chicken. You actually squeeze its belly.
like
you
you
don't
with
choke
women,
it by
man.
its neck. Wait, what?
Kind of like him with women.
and for anyone listening,
once he
he's
knows
referring to
that
Brendan.
he's in their control, he just gives up and accepts death.
That's funny. You gotta admit that's funny.
you choke a chicken by its stomach.
I didn't look at the time when you said Bailey's name today. I think we get about the
quick.
2-minute mark. It's like he can't even make it 2
He
minutes.
mentions
He's like,
his wife first.
he's like
It's-
this.
It was It was in relation to what Derek said. So,
well, Derek started us off today. That was good. It was good, Derek.
I had to, it's like I rarely get to see my wife and the other woman in the house. The dog is now
Jenny
turning the cold shoulder to me, and then we got the outdoor cat. She's a girl too, but I'm not sleeping on the porch. That's where I draw the line. I'm not sleeping on the porch.
Jenny, how old's Jenny?
Oh, like 13.
Yeah, so maybe she's just like, I don't have time. I need to go rest.
So in her younger years, she was a rebel rouser. She was a rebel rouser.
That's funny.
Yeah, she's 13, but I mean, when she knows she's getting treats or she knows she's going for a walk, she gets nuts. She starts running around the living room. She's still pretty spry, but yeah, she is 13. And the cat, we're not sure because we just took her in about 5-6 years ago, and we don't know how old she was when we got her. So
this is the difference between how my wife and I react with our animals. So Xena, we got 3 years ago, and she was 6 going on 7 when we got her. So she's now 10. Evie, we've had our cat since she was 2 months old. We got her as a kitten. She will be 7 next week. When I say that the cat is 6 years old, Mallory wants to cry hysterically. When I say that the dog is 10, she's just like, okay. It's like,
because she's more of a cat person.
She's more of a cat person, and she doesn't know what to do with the dog because the dog doesn't really know what to do with us because she's very scared and timid and sits in her corner and shivers all day. And like, I get that part of it, but it was also like Mallory was the one who picked out this dog. She picked out Xena. We went to the rescue. That was the dog that came out where she was like, I want this one. And almost ever since then, the dog is mine. Mallory just takes her out and feeds her every day, and that's about all the attention she gets.
Okay.
She's not abusive. She's not mean. She just, if you give her a choice
there's
between...
2 references to abuse today. We're on a roll.
We're doing great.
If you want a third.
No, I don't.
If we had to split custody and go into court like one of those 90s sitcoms, we would put the cat and the dog on either side and have Mallory in the middle. Mallory's going straight to the cat, no hesitation whatsoever. I was just going to
say, she would take the cat.
Wouldn't think a second about it.
Rambo,
that's why it's good being single, because I just get to decide all the decisions.
Party at Laura's house.
What other?
I got like a 75-inch flat screen.
Oh, we're there.
And I have one of those big cloud couches too. I've got a couch that's like a game night couch, a movie couch.
We watched last week's podcast with my dad as the star yesterday during dinner. And Will and Beth did not know that he was calling in. Did you like the
little phone thing I put on there with your face in it and your dad's name?
But they thought it was just going to be like a regular episode, and I kept teasing it. I said, wait, this is going to get good. And my dad calls in, and Will's like, that's Pap. I said, next time you're down there, you can get his autograph because he's a star now.
That's cute. That's cute. Brendan didn't even know that was in the because he didn't even watch it.
The mayor might be changing her mind on him. You never know.
Yeah. Dawson royalty, I'm telling you. All right. Pullman Park, a gem in the west end of Butler for, holy cow now, over 90 years. Originally built in 1934, renovated and reopened in 2008. But the park has gone some drastic changes with its number of tenants and also some planned renovations, maintenance things coming up over the summer. You guys have done a lot of work with this over the last couple of weeks. Jake, what are your thoughts on Pullman Park, its current standing, and exactly what its future holds this summer?
Well, I think I want to take some time to spin things forward in a little bit, but we should definitely get Brendan's thoughts on this early on here too, because he was the one who did a lot of the reporting with our news reporter Steve Sukovich as well. The story came out last week Friday online in the Sunday edition, but the short version of it is Pullman Park's losing one of its tenants in the Butler BlueSox. We don't quite know the full story. Haven't really been able to dig in too much into that. BlueSox are no longer a team. They are down in Highlands as the Allegheny A's, as a new team, unaffiliated with the BlueSox. It's not like they moved cities and just adopted a new name, but the history stays. Nope, this is a brand new expansion franchise, just with a lot of the same people that, or a lot of the same names that we know from last year. But they moved out, were disbanded, reformed in a new way, and Pullman Park's going to get a new turf, they believe, this year. The city is looking at changes in ownership / management of the park, which that's the really interesting part we should dig into in a little bit. But Brendan, your takeaways from this and what you did with the reporting and you and Steve did with the reporting.
Well, first I want to say I hate in the A's name, both no longer the Oakland Athletics, but the Allegheny A's, I guess. That apostrophe shouldn't be there. It should just be A, lowercase s.
What an aside.
Connie Mack is to blame for that.
It should bother you more so as an editor with that apostrophe sitting there. I know you're big on not having Oxford commas, but
Oxford apostrophes.
So you say losing a tenant from how a tenant more so sounded as if it was pushed out a tenant with the Butler BlueSox, which is disappointing, and I'll go into that here in a moment. But we've seen the turf there. We've all covered games there. I think. Are you covering your first games there tonight?
I was at one or two BlueSox games last year, so this will be my first high school games tonight.
Yeah, so you've covered games there too. There's a lot of potential for that ballpark. Multiple teams use it. I'm not sure exactly how many, but there's college teams, high school teams, the collegiate league. There's going to be 4 teams there still use it. Half that league is going to be using Pullman as their home stadium this year. I feel like there's a lot of potential there, especially with new turf and just the location. Like it's a historic ballpark. There used to be the Yankees farm system had
and the Tigers
back in the day. So it's just something like not every town has a stadium like that. Not every small town. I mean, Butler's not small, but not every town around here has something like that people kind of flock to. And there's the opportunity to go to summer baseball games. And what I wanted to bring up was I wrote it in my newsletter. I'm pretty sure that's gone. I remembered as I started writing the newsletter, I was 10 years old. I was living down here. My parents brought me to BlueSox games, and my brother and I, who were just getting into baseball and just starting to understand like baseball as a sport and the history of it, like we didn't care that it wasn't the Pirates. Like we went there, we got a foul ball, we thought it was the coolest thing ever. It's still sitting in my closet at home at my dad's house.
That's cool.
I remember there was a broken bat in the middle of the game. It was a wood bat league then, and someone broke it. My brother and I wanted them to sign the broken wood bat and keep it. Like we didn't care that they weren't pros. Like they were older than us. We thought it was still
really cool.
There's that age thing again.
Yeah. What do you mean that age thing? Like just remembering how cool it was to go to BlueSox games. I know you more so covered them. You didn't get to go there as a fan and enjoy the atmosphere, and that's partially why I go to Pirates games is for the atmosphere, the food, and for this summer,
the winning baseball. Yeah.
For this summer, fans aren't gonna be able to enjoy that in terms of concessions. They can still go there and watch the college baseball league, but I feel with how this is developing, that Pullman over the next few years can be more of a destination than it has been in previous years.
Well, have they renovated and reopened the park in 2008? As far as you know, either of you, have they replaced the turf in the last 17 years?
No, they have not.
That is crazy.
Yeah. And
considering how many games have been played down there.
And I was looking this up. We didn't run this in the story, and it depends on the quality of the turf, the company that installs it, how it's installed, environment, amount of usage, all that stuff. But turf fields tend to last between 8 to 12 years. Now, a lot of places, I've seen high schools that have extended that by a little bit, but you're talking a field that has been used. Someone said 250, 300 games last year it was used last year. You multiply, let's say that number conservatively has been 200 a year for 17 years. 2020 knocked out by COVID, so we'll just say it's 200 and had to grow for a little bit when it was first reopened. 200 times 17 is a lot. I did not do the math on the top of my head, but it is a lot. That turf should have been replaced a long time ago, which is no wonder we've seen high school teams this year, Butler, Karn City, Knock, opt to play away from it early on this season because it's like Brendan walked around the turf and saw some of the patches there, like literal patches that are replaced. And like credit to the staff for doing what they need to do to keep it running. But this has been a neglected facet of the stadium experience for too long, and I understand why this is creating some problems.
And you think about such as the NFL, where I think the Giants Stadium has turf. Like, pros don't like using that turf, and you figure like health insurance and stuff factors in, like these parents have to pay if their kids get hurt. So it becomes a concern not only for the kids, but for the parents. Like, you would think in a perfect world, like, oh, the turf is a little messed up, like no one's going to get hurt. But if you plant the wrong way and you're sliding into second and third base, if that comes up and you're sliding the wrong way, you can break your fingers, you can break your wrist. Like, there's a lot that goes. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into that, and I personally wouldn't want to play on a surface where I know you could get hurt easier. Like, so it's understandable that the teams they ended up coming back this year, but Knock didn't use it as their home field. Montauk decided to play at Slippery Rock instead this year at Critchfield Park, which is a nice park in itself. Garden City, I think, had all of its games scheduled there. Butler was away for the start of the season. Obviously, the concerns
Knox
are
playing down at no off season in Russellton.
Yeah, obviously the concerns have kind of bubbled over there.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have done a really good job. I'm sorry, you want to add something?
I was going to say now the thing going forward is we didn't touch on this too much here, but I saved it intentionally. The big thing of this story going forward is the city is looking at Butler School District to run the park going forward. Now, that's not a guarantee. It's not in writing or anything like that. But this is where conversations are going right now. What does this mean? You guys know the names, the organizations involved a little bit better than me right now. What does this mean going forward for people that are listening to the show? What do you think that this means? And what do you think that this means for what could change out of this? But like one of the quotes that Dr. White had in Steve's story was, "We think we can host events." I'm paraphrasing this quite a bit, but we think we can host events between the high school field, Pullman Park, the softball field, which we could turn into a little league field with a little bit of adjustment. We think we can host events for that. Now that could mean any sort of thing there, but what does this now mean? What should people kind of be? We're speculating a little bit. This is a developing story probably over the next year at least. But from what you guys know about all the parties involved, what do you think might happen?
I don't know exactly what the financial situation of the park is, but my question, my belief is if they're looking for somebody else, another party, and you said a Butler School District coming in, my guess is the park itself is not it's not in good financial shape.
Yeah.
So anybody involved down there, if it's Butler School District or another entity, they have to get the park to the point where it's more stable financially. I know from the past, within the last 8-10 years, there were times where they, after the baseball season was over, they would try to host concerts down there. Mm-hmm. A few Octobers ago, I remember they had I don't know if it was an oldies concert or a country music concert, but I'm told that didn't do well. Okay. But when you're hosting events like that, and obviously you're using the lights, you have like a set amount of money that, okay, this is what we need to make.
Yeah, just to break even.
And I don't know if the park was able to do that with those, outside of athletic activities down there. But you have to get to the point where everybody who is involved, the park has to be financially stable, and it has not been for a while now.
Now, $400,000 is what they estimate the renovations to cost for the concourse and for the turf. That's going to come out of the Butler Area Sewer Authority sale fund that the city signed for I think it was like $28 million a couple months ago. So that should be taken care of before the school district takes over, is what Steve's reporting was. But Brendan, as a former Butler athlete, I know you didn't play baseball at the varsity level, but you have covered baseball games at every park, every school in this area. If Butler took over Pullman, it gets a new turf, it gets a fresh coat of paint on the facade and everything like that. What kind of stadium experience does that become in comparison? And I'm not trying to be derogatory to the other stadiums, but what kind of experience does that become? Does Butler's potentially new stadium that it owns now become something like you said a gem earlier? When we were talking about it, what does that become then in comparison to others?
Well, you also have to wonder. Like I'm thinking this, obviously, like you said, this is speculation, but Garden City, if they use a field, would the Garden City School District chip in?
Yeah.
If Knock doesn't really have a home stadium except for that Russellton where they're playing, and when I went there, they don't have bleachers. It's just one bench around the whole field.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's.
You've been to Russellton
for one game? Yeah. Wow. Whenever they
must have been when I was on vacation.
Played. Actually, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, actually it was.
Yeah, and then you figure any other school districts that play there, like you would think that they would help out, right?
Or they're gonna have to pay a fee to use.
Yeah.
Which is what they are doing at Russellton, I assume.
You mentioned Dr. White's comment about being able to hold events there. Like, I don't think if Butler takes over that they're going to say, you know what, to this collegiate league, get out of here. Like,
yeah.
From what Bill Milan said to me on the phone, I don't think the quote's made in the story, it sounds as if he wants it to be a place that attracts people, whether that be for Butler baseball games. They wouldn't buy the stadium just to use it for Butler baseball games because that's what, like 15 games a year? Like, you figured they'd want to use it for more, like that they would want it to be more of, like I said earlier, a destination for people to come. And like I said, I had good times when I was there when I was younger. Sean Manning, the commissioner of the Baseball Alliance that we cover, he said that he wants it to be something that connects little leaguers to college players and kind of grows the game more. And around here, as we've seen with the leagues kind of folding and lesser interest in the league baseball, that could be a good thing for baseball as a whole.
Do I have time to add a Pullman Park memory for myself?
Yeah, absolutely.
I started here in April of 2002, April 2nd, 2002, and the first time I was ever at Pullman was about 3 weeks later. I hadn't covered a game down there yet, but John, our old editor, sent me down there to get a story out of former Major League pitcher Paul Foytek. He had played, I mentioned earlier that Pullman Park was home to a farm team for the Yankees, but it was also home for about 2 or 3 years in the early 50s to a farm team for the Tigers. And Paul Foytek, who would go on to pitch about 5 or 6 years for the Tigers, came back to Pullman. He had played at Pullman as a minor leaguer, and we knew he was coming back. So John said, "Hey, this guy's a former major leaguer, played at Pullman in the early 50s. Go down and get a story out of him." So I go down there, and it was pretty cool because former major leaguer at this point, Paul was in his early 70s, but they had probably about 3 boxes worth of baseballs there, brand new baseballs, and he was taking them out and signing autographs for people. He had a big cigar. I remember that. But he told me that he was in Butler, I believe it was for one season, and he told me 3rd Avenue. Here I've been working here for 23 years. Where's 3rd Avenue at? Anyway, he said it was close to the park. That's where he lived. He said the people were really friendly. He said each day he would just walk to the park because it was like a 3 or 4 block walk. And he let me in on one kind of area of baseball history that he had a hand in. The year that Roger Maris hit 61 home runs to break Babe Ruth's single-season record, Paul Foytek gave up the first home run to Maris that year. It was like in mid-April, and he gave up home run number 1 to Maris, and obviously Maris would go on to hit 60 more that year to break the record. But that was a pretty cool bit of history. But 1934, that's how long the park's been there. Renovated, reopened in 2008. So many teams have played down there. I remember going down after it reopened. This was probably like 2010 or 11. And we were using, at that point, Karn City was using it as their home field. Knock, Butler, Montauk. So I was used to the teams around here playing home games down there. And I went down there for a game one time. I can't remember if it was Butler or Montauk, but when I got down there was a game going on at the time, like a game that we didn't care about. And it was like North Clarion against Venango Catholic. And I'm like, what are these teams playing here for? And Jay Miranda, the old PA announcer who just retired, I went into the booth and I said, "Jay, why are these teams?" He said, "North Clarion is playing home games here this year." North Clarion, which is a bus ride about an hour and 45 minutes from Butler. But their field, their home field, obviously it wasn't turf. I mean, North Clarion's kind of, you hear the word boondocks. It's a good 20 minutes north of Clarion. And they knew that this field, Pullman Park, had turf, so they can play a ton of games on it. And at the time, at least, the field was in really good shape. So you had teams coming like an hour and 45 minutes one way to play home games. So that was just some memories I had of Pullman Park. But hopefully it gets back to, as Brennan said, not every town has a gem like that within its limits, and so much can be done with that park, and hopefully it gets back on its feet. I really do.
Bring back a major league farm team to Butler.
Buckers. This past Saturday, Butler County Sports Hall of Fame hosted its 58th annual induction ceremony. It was at Butler County Community College's Founders Hall, and I had the pleasure to be there. Real quick to name the inductees this year, there were 7: Joella Baker, Larry Dillon, Joe Lewandowski, Tom Phillips, Scott Stoner, Melissa Sofer Williams, and Art Montleone. as you guys know, a few weeks ago we had Scott Stoner on our podcast here, but there were so many stories that came out of the induction speeches. I obviously can't go through them all, but a couple I just wanted to throw out there. Larry Dillon, who graduated from Butler in '77, he has a condition, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce it because I know I'd screw it up, but he has a condition, and he's had it since his youth. It makes it impossible for him to sweat. He cannot sweat. Mm-hmm. So that's why he chose swimming. In this pool, it's, I guess you don't sweat in a pool when you think about it. You get out of the water, you're wet, but it's because it's water. So that's one of the reasons why he chose swimming. He was a star swimmer at Butler, and he went on to Westminster, where he had a great freshman season. As a freshman up there, he went to the NAIA national meet, did really well there. But then this condition, which also it's almost like arthritis, kind of makes you think of arthritis. He had muscle pain, bone pain because of this condition, and he had to stop swimming after his freshman year. So, but he left a very big impression on Butler swimming, and also in local YMCA. He swam for Pump McLaughlin, the legendary coach here at the Butler Y. He went all over the East Coast for YMCA meets. Once swam in the YMCA Nationals down in Fort Lauderdale, and that great season he had at Westminster. So I think his induction was incredibly deserving, but just, you hear somebody going in the Hall of Fame and you're ready to hear about all their accomplishments. One of this guy's accomplishments has nothing to do with the times or anything he accomplished in the pool. It was just the fact that he went through what he did. I mean, can you imagine all the stuff we did as kids, running around with our friends? Can you imagine not being able to sweat? I mean, you wouldn't be able to play baseball, football, your legendary career. It really struck me. I didn't know that going in. I knew that Larry Dillon was going in because of swimming, but his induction speech kind of let me on to exactly the ordeal he went through as a teenager and even now as an adult. The other one is Art Monteleone, the longtime ref, 54 years as a referee for high school football and basketball games, and he's still going strong. I think he's 81, 82 years old now, and he's still reffing. Art told me that when he was dating his eventual wife, his mother, Art's mother, told his to-be wife, Peggy, she said, "Peggy, if you don't like football or basketball, you better get out now." Well, this was back in the late 70s when they were just dating. I think they've been married now for 44 years. But I can't imagine doing the same thing that long and still having a passion for it, but he does. And it's evidenced by the fact that he's in his early 80s now, and he still makes a point to, number one, stay in shape. You have to – he's in shape. Early 80s, you look at Art, he's in really good shape, and obviously that helps him do what he needs to do on the basketball court and the football field. He said during his induction speech he hopes to go another couple years, which would put him in his mid-80s. I think it's a great story.
Unbelievable.
But the thing that I came away from just as a group, this whole group going in, 7 people, and when you think about it, each one entered the Hall of Fame from a different field. I mean, with Joella Baker, it's triathlons. Larry Dillon, it was swimming. Of course, Tom Phillips, volleyball down at Freeport. Scott Stoner with wrestling. Melissa Sofer Williams with track and field at Slippery Rock High School and University. And Joe Lewandowski with basketball. You think, okay, what do these people have in common? I mean, what could Joella Baker with her running in triathlons and doing it very successfully over the years have in common with, Scott Stoner, who's a legendary wrestling coach at Butler? The common denominator with all these people is passion. I mean, they have a passion that has urged them to stay with something as long as they have, and they have the dedication to rise to greatness. And it's really cool to see so many 7 people going in, all coming from different fields, but they have that one common denominator, passion. Just to cover it and to hear their stories. The induction speeches were really, really cool. And the story appeared in today's paper. I was only able to include some quotes, but boy, everybody gave great stories, great quotes. And this is the second year in a row that I was able to cover the Hall of Fame induction, and it really was a treat. Plus, this isn't the most important thing, but the food, stuffed chicken breast was really good. Really good.
That's the lead that you buried there.
I buried the lead.
How good was the dinner?
It was good. It was good. Salad, stuffed chicken breast, rolls, butter. We each got a cupcake. I think it was like almond butter icing, which is right up my alley. So, yeah, I probably walked out of there with a sugar level of about 300, but I'm still here. I'm still kicking.
How was our favorite John and Darlene?
Good. I sat right next to Darlene at the table.
Did she cry?
I don't think she cried, but, Darlene, you guys know. You guys have been around her enough to know that when she hears like an emotional story, like it affects her. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could tell just I was sitting here watching the induction speech and she's like right behind me. And every time somebody would say something that was like emotional or, was said to kind of struck a chord with people, she'd be like, aw. So I knew every time she did it, I was like, I got to make sure that, because I was recording the speeches on my phone. Let's make a point to go back where she says "aw" and make sure I get that quote, because that's the one I'm going to put in the story.
She is the human embodiment of I hope everyone has a good time.
Yeah. Except for John.
Except for John.
Yeah.
And there's like one or two other pro athletes out there where she's just like, no, I hate
Tom Brady.
Yeah. But almost everyone else, if both teams could come away with gold, she would be happy.
Yeah. Those two, John and Darlene, boy, you talk about, I mean, they've been married for over 40 years now. Actually, it'll be 40 in May here. I think it's May 11th is their anniversary. But you talk about two people that, in my opinion, they are perfect for each other. John has a thick skin. He can
patient.
He can handle the jabs from Darlene, and I honestly can't remember a time I've ever hung out with them that I didn't enjoy myself. They're just a fun couple to be around.
Now that he's a Hall of Famer in his own right,
and he's on the committee now.
And he's
too.
on the committee.
Yep.
Is he just walking around, big man on campus, just strutting around?
Well, he's got the jacket. He's got the jacket, and I asked him, can I buy one of those? But no, apparently I can't. But you can tell. I mean, John's very proud of not only his induction, but he's also proud to be on the committee, because for years he dealt with it. He would do the Hall of Fame stories. So he would deal with that committee every spring leading up to the induction. Now he's a member of the Hall of Fame, and he's part of that committee himself. And you can tell he's very proud of that. And what a great ambassador, because as I said last year when John left, we did a story, kind of one of those mock pages where it has stories from John's coworkers. But I wrote a story, and it didn't actually get published. It was on that mock page that we gave to John as a gift as he left. But it was true when I wrote that John doesn't talk at people; he talks with them. He never talks down to people. I don't know if I've ever heard him talk down to people. He finds a common ground with you. He finds a common ground with people, and he talks with you, and he's really able to relate to so many people so well. So he's a very good, effective ambassador for that Hall of Fame committee.
Absolutely.
That's from my dad, by the way.
The dancing.
I winked at her.
Oh. So, Derek, as you know,
Steelers
Steelers drafted an Oregon player in the first round of the NFL draft, Derek Harmon. Went back and did some research.
Oh, boy.
Who was the last Oregon player that the Pittsburgh Steelers drafted before Derek Harmon?
Is my record updated? I just want to. Okay. I'm 18-15 now, by the way.
It is in the past 15 years, so there's that.
Okay. I get a few minutes to think about that. All right. My sheet here, and I did not put this on there. It says beyond Butler, one gorilla versus 100 men. Who wins? Well, are you the gorilla?
No, it's an actual silverback gorilla. It is the latest Twitter discourse. I'm not sure how much you've been on Twitter in the past few days. You don't use it much, and I don't think would kind of cross paths in our consumption on Twitter.
I was gonna say we should let you intro the segment for a second here, but I'm gonna spoil something a moment here.
Yeah, spoil it. All right. Welcome to Beyond Butler, our weekly segment where we talk about something other than Butler County sports, whether that be professionally, collegiately, or today, this somehow, somewhat intersects with sports because, we cover wrestling, we cover boxing. It is the latest Twitter trend. My whole Twitter for the past day has been this. But could 100 men beat up one silverback gorilla? Take it away, guys.
Absolutely.
This is the thing that this is not a new argument. I've heard this before. I've also heard similar arguments to this, like 10 jaguars versus a gorilla, 10 jaguars versus this is recycled. Good job, Twitter. That's
still just as entertaining.
Look, number one, here's what we do is you take the gorilla and you put one guy in front of him. One guy that he's just beating on, right? So that would be you. And then the other guy's the gorilla can't see, he can't defend himself, and just Jake can come up behind him and just start wailing him on the back of the head.
And then I get killed because he swings around and
then
throws me through a wall.
There's a few different
you might
ways.
be maimed, but he'll go down.
There's
believe
a few
me.
different ways you can address this, right?
You guys haven't watched Gorillas in the Mist.
Oh,
from
gorillas will rip us apart.
From what Twitter thinks it would be a line of men, not 100 at one time.
Oh,
so,
okay. Well,
Twitter, the way it sounds, is they want 100 men to line up, and they want one guy to take on the gorilla. Okay, you lose. Next guy.
So I thought it was 100 guys at a time.
So basically like a gauntlet match for the gorilla.
Yeah, it's like
so
Royal Rumble.
The theory is the gorilla would just smack.
Well, can you carry a gun into the place?
No.
Okay.
Bare hands.
No brass
The theory
knuckles.
is the gorilla would
That's not a fair fight.
Would beat up the first however many men. You gotta hope that this gorilla gets tired.
Can I use crane technique?
As long as there's no weapons.
Miyagi said
you go one-on-one with the gorilla.
If used properly, no can defend, including gorillas.
I think he'd amend that to say you're on your own now.
So if you change it to that, where it's 100 men in a row, and you go one at a time. I've seen memes like the gorilla would rip the guy's head off,
It's just gonna grab and throw, grab and throw. It's gonna be so.
If I'm in this line, I'm guy number 100. That's all I'm saying.
They're like 1,200 pounds. Like they've got us by 6-7 times the weight. In theory, I guess you could say you could exhaust the gorilla to death. I think your only shot is if each guy, instead of just running at it, just trying to beat it up, just tries to run circles around it for a while and tire it out that way. But even then, the first 60 people are the gorilla's just going to rip them in half. I've heard zoologists talk about this. Gorillas are so strong they can just tear your limbs off your body.
At what point? I've seen videos like chimpanzees, you stick your hand in the cage and they
can rip your arm off.
And they're like,
that's why they say don't stick your hand in the cage.
Chimpanzees have been known to rip their owners' faces off, literally rip their face off.
Yeah,
they're angry because they're in cages, and
Bubbles
I don't blame
the
them.
monkey and Michael Jackson
Probably rip someone's face off too.
At what number do you think if
my dad?
If these 100 men can take down this gorilla in a line?
Okay, son.
At what number? What number finally gets this gorilla down? Finally beats this gorilla.
Here's the other thing is, even if you can get the gorilla tired, even if it just stops fighting, how are you going to kill it with bare hands? You better hope that you've got John Batista there, that can just leg lock this thing around the neck. And maybe you can squeeze its throat hard enough that it stops breathing.
Rousey.
Ronda Rousey would be another good one.
As Apollo Creed's trainer said in Rocky 2, stick and move. Don't try to go pound for pound up. If you
get sucked in the face by
hit him, move
one time, you're done.
Yes,
but
it's over.
I have a real Why is this what they're talking about? Are they literally so bored they can't think of something?
It's fun. It's fun.
It is.
It's fun and it's funny. Yes.
How are you going to find 100 men that are even going to sign up for that?
Twitter.
Apparently, well, yeah, there you go. I guess
it's
Twitter.
like the ice bucket challenge.
Someone said in Roman times it would have taken 100 men who have done a heinous crime.
Yes, they used to
toss them on in. Test that theory out.
I think they did used to put them in there with wild animals, and
That's what the Coliseum was for. They'd fight lions and
Did you not see Gladiator 2?
I've seen it.
I haven't seen either one of them, actually.
What?
How about bullfighting? Have you ever seen Dallas Buyers Club?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, great movie. But anyway, that starts off with a scene at the rodeo. Well,
so Derek would go up to it and they'd go.
Here's the thing about the gorilla.
I can beat Donkey Kong. I can beat Donkey Kong.
Remember, the gorilla is like the leader, right? So you're not just dealing with the gorilla. At some point, those other monkeys,
Silverbacks.
they're coming, and then you're all
You ever
done.
seen Rise of the Planet of the Apes?
It's Silverback.
His friend.
I really want to watch
AI
the rebooted series. I've seen most of the originals, and I saw the one in like 2002, which was.
What about the part in Spaceballs where they're on the planet? Where they're on the planet and there's the monkeys and what do they say at the end? It's whenever the head of the Statue of Liberty lands, and they're like British or something, aren't they? The monkeys.
I forget.
What do they say? That's gonna drive me crazy. I'm gonna have to look it up.
Ape
you guys
together, strong.
Have you seen Spaceballs? Because you're about to get kicked out of this room. I'm going to make a list of movies that you are required to watch.
Rick Moranis is awesome.
Rick Moranis is hilarious in that. Dark Helmet.
Oh, he's so good.
He's so good. He goes, comb the desert. Remember that?
And they have the giant comb.
And then they have the pick, and he's like, we ain't found.
So, as one final question here, I'm guessing 100 people work in this building, give or take. So, somewhere near that, including the press guys.
Might be pushing it a little bit.
You should include the press,
including the press guys, probably 100 guys.
And the people who do the bundles and delivery.
What guy or what person that works in here would be most likely to take down the gorilla?
Don't forget about the women.
Well, like I said, it depends.
Me, our threshold
Donna does
for
karate.
Is higher than men.
Donna does martial arts, and Tammy is like she does biking and running and
Zach
stuff
Zimmerman's like 6'7", 300
Hey, I rode
pounds.
my bike cross country, so
Will Pitts. I mean, that gorilla is not seen. Will Pitts.
Talk about people off the show, Laura. It's not about you.
I could see Will Pitts.
But here's the thing: you could have the
you were
strongest
including
person
yourselves. I thought we were
working
all
here.
included.
But if they're the first person to go up against the gorilla, they're not winning. And you want the toughest person to be, a few people back in your line of 100 people.
You gotta be batting cleanup. Is what you're
all
saying?
done.
Yeah,
you're all out.
Yeah, cleanup is in like maybe 50th.
We'll send Tim Tarcher back there in front.
I'm going for this.
First. Number 2 is John from composing. I think he'd have a pretty good chance of taking down a gorilla.
Okay.
Is this really what we're talking about for Beyond Butler?
He said Will Pitts.
Hey, Will Pitts.
You let this show get out of control.
Jake,
I'm blaming you today.
Will Pitts.
No, it's supposed to be sports related.
Wrestling and fighting are sports related, so this is loosely sports related.
But this is animal cruelty, and it's abusive, and you need to watch
After a whole
Gorillas
lot
in
of
the
human
Mist.
cruelty.
This is true.
My vote, I think the person most likely
TikTok
to take
related,
down
which is not
Twitter.
Oh, I'm sorry, Twitter.
Different.
First of all, Twitter's not even a thing anymore, and if you say X, I'm definitely turning your mic off.
I won't call it X. My vote for most, and I'll tell him this when we go up after the
Blue
show.
Origin.
My vote for most likely
Let's
to
talk
take
about
down a
that.
gorilla is Zach Zimmerman because he's a big man.
Rob McGraw.
Oh,
Rob,
whoa.
hey.
Oh, yeah, Rob McGraw.
He'd be taking pictures of everything. Though.
Soul's pretty big too. Soul's pretty. There's a few men in here that I think, and
Okay.
women. I think Donna could take him down. I'll
come
tell her
on.
when
She
we
takes
go
Tai
up.
Chi, but that's more calming, isn't
She
it?
hits boards with like karate kicks. She's not going up against she might be breaking 6 things of ice
You're
with her
talking about
hand.
aggression,
Donna,
you
I
gotta
believe
be
in you. No, Derek's got to answer his trivia question.
Oh, that's right.
Hold on. That's why I was
I
doing
I think
that.
I'm finally going to get him today.
I had to look it up because I didn't know the answer.
Oh, you did.
So,
Ooh.
I don't know.
Can you
what
get this
the
guy
answer
has been drafted within the last 15. So we're talking 2010 to now.
Yeah.
Last guy the Steelers drafted from Oregon. Chris Kimawatu.
No, let's go.
is. You gonna give him the answer?
Yes. You remember tight end David Paulson?
Wow, no.
That he was drafted in the 7th round in 2012.
I was thinking Dennis Dixon, but he was drafted in 09.
Yeah, he was. The Oregon players the Steelers have taken include quarterbacks Mike Brundage. Do you remember him? 1966. Dennis Dixon, running back Jim Evanson, 1970. You know him?
Nope.
Wait, what?
Brian Hinkle. Brian Hinkle's got to be on that list.
He is one of them. Center Bill Smith, 1967. Know him?
No.
Offensive tackles Hal Reeve, 1955, and Paul Wiggins, 1997.
Paul Wiggins. No, I don't remember Paul.
You said his name like you remembered him.
No.
Linebackers Dave Toby and Brian Hinkle.
Was it Paul Wiggins or Paul Wiggin?
Paul Wiggins.
Okay. Nope, don't know.
Okay, there we go.
Well, you achieved your goal. You made me look like
ended the 4-game winning streak. All right.
So what are we finishing up with here? I got to talk about. We haven't even talked about Mike Sullivan.
We haven't. That's true. We haven't mentioned Mike Sullivan at all today.
Okay, you want to do Mike Sullivan other than just instead of the draft?
It's 420.
Yeah.
I just heard this news coming into today. Right after the season was over, it sounded like Mike Sullivan was coming back to coach another year with the Pittsburgh Penguins. But now it's come down today that he's actually been a mutual part. I think that's what they call it, mutual part.
Quote.
Yeah, going their separate ways. The Pittsburgh Penguins and Mike Sullivan, after 10 years?
10 years.
He's out as head coach of the Penguins. Jake, you're more of a hockey guy than any of either of us. So what are your thoughts on this?
Mallory would laugh to hear that statement. No, I think the team's in the middle of a rebuild, and the thing that's interesting to me is hearing some Penguins fans in my corner of the world talk about how like they can't win, and it's like, yeah, you've got 3 guys that are 36 and older on expensive contracts, and you have no youth movement coming up, no significant youth movement. You have some young guys, but it needs to be a lot more to carry this team to any more Stanley Cup runs in the next few years, at least while Crosby and Malkin are still playing. I guess because you've gotten rid of GMs twice in the last 5 years, it's a little bit more difficult to blame it on that when you've been shuffling those decks. And I guess there must be some difference in opinion on how the rebuild is going and what Sullivan wants.
The vision.
It's like this happened similarly with the Flyers a couple months ago, where they fire Torts because he starts making comments of like, I'm basically saying I'm too old for this crap. And they're like, okay, well, you were on board with this up until 2 weeks ago, and you know what you signed up for when we hired you. There's the door. I'm not saying it's that with Sullivan, but it had to have been some sort of disagreement on the timeline or how you're going about the rebuild or the retooling or whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Now the interesting thing is you've got Tocchet, who's potentially out there as a coach that the Flyers have been linked to a bunch because he's a former Flyer, but he's a winning coach who – does he pick the Flyers who are in the middle of a rebuild, or does he pick a Penguins team who he could maybe talk himself into, hey, I've got 3 vets that have won this a few times before already. Maybe I can win it with them.
Rick Tocchet?
Yeah.
Also a former Penguin.
Former Penguin too? Okay. And there's a cut like now you've got the two arch rivals within the state both looking for coaches at the same time. Could have an interesting bidding war. I would find it very funny if the Flyers then went out and got Mike Sullivan. That seems like a very Flyers thing to do.
You know, there's a quote from Bum Phillips, who never won a Super Bowl, but he was a really good coach for the Oilers back in the late 70s. And he said, there's 2 kinds of coaches in this world. These were his exact words. Them that's been fired or them that's going to be fired. I've been both, he said. So, I mean, you look at Mike Sullivan, 2 straight Stanley Cups in 16 and 17. Who did he replace? Dan Bylsma. By the time Dan Bylsma...
Mike Johnston. He was between them.
Okay. Well, Dan Bylsma, my point is, by the time Dan Bylsma's time with the Penguins was up, fans were sick of him too. And when he came in to replace Michael Therrien back in 2009, he was the savior, and the Penguins won the Cup that year. And Dan Bylsma was the greatest thing since...
So they should have made this mid-season because, you know, whenever they got rid of Mike Johnson, it was middle of the season. I remember listening to 93.7 that season. It was about January. And people called and said, we need to trade away. There was one call that called and said, we need to trade away both Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby because we've been to playoffs all these times. We can't do anything with them. And that one phone call, I'll never hear it again. I'll never be able to go back and pick what day that was. But that one phone call stuck in my head because a few days later, Mike Sullivan takes over, Stanley Cup. And this was back when I watched every Penguins game, knew every player on the roster, knew the lineups. And then the next year, here on Pro Hockey Reference, they went 50, 21, and 11.
I completely forgot about Mike Johnston. Very mild-mannered, kind of real short guy.
Yeah, didn't really have much of a temper to him.
I'm sorry, Mike. I forgot about you. But, yeah, that is right.
Yeah, and it's just crazy. Like, I don't know. Maybe they should have just made that change in the middle of the season. We could have won a Stanley Cup if history repeats itself a third time.
This Penguins roster is Stanley Cup ready.
Just needed a kick in the behind.
Dan Bylsma wins a cup. Stays in Pittsburgh long enough to wear out his welcome. Mike Sullivan wins 2 cups and apparently stayed in Pittsburgh long enough to wear out his welcome. But you know what? How many coaches who have won 1 Stanley Cup, let alone 2, like Sullivan did, you were on a very, very short list. So,
in terms of coaches or managers in Pittsburgh that deserve to be fired, I would argue that Sullivan was third on that list behind Mike Tomlin and
Shelton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if Mike Shelton deserves to be fired. I mean, I think it got you batting cleanup tonight, so I don't think it.
Hey, they took 1 of 3 from the Dodgers.
The
Rogers. We're the Rogers. We're the Rogers.
You're number 1 on the list of 100 going up against that gorilla. I'm telling you. Good luck.
Would you rather bat cleanup for the Pirates or fight the gorilla?
Next week, we'll see you. We encourage you to subscribe to the Butler Eagle YouTube channel and Apple or Spotify podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Alter Eagle Podcast and at Butler Eagle News. Goodbye.